Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session from Code to Cloud, how engineering teams can take charge of FinOps. My name is Harish. I lead product management for a few areas here at Harness. I'm joined by Jignesh from Morningstar. Do you want to introduce yourself, Jignesh?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Arish. Jignesh Patel from Morningstar. I have responsibilities over cloud and DevOps, and particularly on this session, I also have cloud FinOps. So, looking forward to this amazing chat.
Awesome. So we surveyed over 700 developers and gleaned insights around the areas that concern them for cross-cloud cost management. And we're going to talk about some of those findings here in the session. So let's dive right in.
Absolutely.
I think one of the first things that kind of stood out to me personally was how 60% of the developers want more responsibility. Like they want to be able to manage costs, but they don't feel that they're empowered, or they don't feel that that they have the right tooling and the right information at their fingertips. So from your experience, Jignesh, like what do you agree with that? Is there something that that stands out?
I think there's a lot to unpack there. First, it's awesome that the developers actually want more responsibility instead of less. But we've burdened them, right? And we've thrown a lot of tools at them and said, hey, look here for your pipelines, look here for your cloud cost management, look here now for your finance. And also, hey, by the way, you always have to come under budget, right? Or what's your forecast? The tools are getting better, as especially with the Harness CCM and all of the fantastic work you guys been doing. The insights are getting more valuable, but the process hasn't improved.
Right.
So it's all about process and teaching the developers on when to do what, walking them through it, and then letting them figure it out because they're smart. They're developers. They will make the tools work for them. And one of the beautiful parts about CCM was that tool was built for developers first, not finance folks or people like me.
Right.
So I think it's just a matter of getting them better integrated through process.
Right. So when we try to include these toolings as part of their software dev lifecycle, if it's part of that DevOps tooling, if it's part of their day-to-day operations, if you will, then it's easier for them to action on those costs, right? Because you're sort of bringing those costs to where they are, and you're meeting them kind of like how they're spending the day and so on, and it's a lot easier for making for them to act on those costs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dirk and I have talked about this multiple times too. It's all about shifting that information left, right? Meeting the developer where they are. Don't make them do context switching or tool switching, because that takes away from their productivity. And then guess what? They're not going to like it.
Yeah.
But then we're also wanting to hold them accountable, so we got to pick one.
Right, right. I think one of the things that also stands out in this report is the inability for some organizations uh, to actually get their developers to act on those costs. It feels like they're burdened by so many things, right? You got to deal with quality, you got to deal with security, and now you have efficiency as well. So how do you sort of unburden them and have them to sort of start focusing on costs as an imperative that's necessary?
Yeah, and I think it's with everything that we do with developers. You got to make it easy, whether that be through value insight reporting or dashboarding, or only care about the top 10, right? They're going to get thrown 2,000 recommendations. As a developer, you look at that and be like, no, I'm not getting to that 2,000 today. But if you told me, hey, these top 10 will knock off 80% of my cost, I may get to them. And then from partnership side, you also got to work with how do they get it into their sprints or where they work, how they work. How do you make that more actionable and part of them delivering software?
Right, right. So you basically start with first giving them visibility into where the waste is.
Correct.
And then give them the tooling that's necessary, and have them sort of act and iterate on that process on a continuous basis.
And then also congratulate them, right? I mean, one of the things
Yeah.
I actually liked about Harness is it has a particular tab on there that says, look at your year-to-date actions that you've taken, and here's how much money you've saved.
Right, right.
Which is awesome.
Right. So I think one of the things that also sometimes you kind of have to struggle with as a developer is the sprawl of optimization tooling out there. So there's like so many techniques that one can employ to save costs, whether it is applying recommendations towards Kubernetes workloads, or whether it's applying discounts for savings plans and RI purchases, orchestrating like spot and on-demand instances. There's just a sprawl of techniques out there, and knowing what to apply when can also be a challenge. And how do you feel like that's something which your developers face at Morningstar as well?
They do, but one of our FinOps group in general, the folks that I have on my team, we're fortunate enough to have on my team, is they break that down for them.
Yeah.
They work with them to say, hey, we've identified where we could apply savings plans in our eyes. We've identified potential spot or instance type changes. But then again, the tooling is doing that for them as well, right? One of the neat things about your tools are it's in the dashboard. They can play around with it.
Right.
They can move around with recommendations. What if I went to this type versus that type? But again, I think it's partnering with them and then identifying your champions and going after it that way instead of making it everyone's responsibility to understand spot instances, ROI, savings plans. Because at the end of the day, they're developers. They want to code.
Right. In terms of actioning on this data, one of the insights that stands out is how 86% of the developers takes over a week to detect and shut down idle resources. So the delay can hurt, right? And the costs can creep up, but they can continue to creep up through the week. And if it's not actioned upon instantly, then that can also hurt. So how do you guys manage that?
Well, there's two ways. One is through governance. You can employ things like auto stop instances and whatever other techniques you want to do. And then two is just teaching your developers on dashboards again. On, hey, here's the dashboards you should be looking at, or can we get better alerting and monitoring in place?
Yeah.
Some of the things that was missing earlier on, especially when it was more financial operations focused versus developer operations focused when it came to cost, is that it was a foresight. You got to report 30 days later or 15 days later on your costs have ballooned. But now you're getting almost real-time data on costs.
Right.
So, and that's what developers love. They love real-time feedback.
Yeah, and I guess like going back to one of the earlier points you made about integrating that as part of your software delivery lifecycle can give them that proactive insights even before they're provisioning the resources, even when they want to apply those recommendations on a continuous basis, because it is not something that they're doing from a reactive standpoint or a one-time thing. It's just part of their lifecycle.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. And they developers also often default to over provisioning, right? And you can't blame them because they want to make sure that things don't fail. There's uptime. So how do you sort of balance between over provisioning and ensuring that it's efficient at the same time? Like what's the performance cost balance and how do you achieve that?
That's a hard one because then the trade-off there is almost on how much development time are you willing to spend on possible re-architecture, right? There's ways to do it easy, which is savings plans, RIs, spot instances. That's the easy way. But then there's also the other way, which is move more towards a containerized Kubernetes framework and let the cloud do the scaling for you, or move completely to serverless and you don't have to manage any of it. Right, so it's a balance on how much re-architecture you want to do with your application versus the quick wins. And then you also have to balance, hey, what's the roadmap for this application? Am I actually getting value out of it by putting in this effort to potentially re-architect and it's going to stick around? So there's long-term savings versus, hey, this is going away in 9 months. Let's throw some spot instances there or a mix of spot and Kubernetes and call it a day. Right,
makes sense. 55% of the developers seem to think that cloud cost management isn't a priority. It's often viewed as someone else's problem, right? Like when you sort of look at a breakdown of this, it could be a problem that cloud operations deals with, or FinOps if those teams exist in large organizations, SREs even, right? So how does one make it a priority for developers? How does one make them accountable, culpable for these changes? And empower them.
As Durkin likes to say, there's a carrot-shaped stick.
Yeah.
The easy answer to that is we at Morningstar do something called chargeback, not just showback. So it actually hits their P&Ls, and at the end of the day, it's hitting their bonuses. So that's one way, but that's the hard way, right? The other way is just finding those champions and showing them the progress that they've made on, hey, this P&L versus this P&L, and gamifying it.
Yeah, I like the gamification a lot. We've tried to employ those techniques at Harness as well. So we have a model where there are different teams who are in charge of their own infrastructure costs as it relates to the modules that they're releasing, and as those teams grow, their costs grow as well.
Correct.
So we try to like account for some of that, normalize that, and then try to gamify that whole experience where we try to celebrate wins, and then in some cases, if you're like right up there and on the board, you don't want to be up there. So it's and developers inherently want to be efficient. It's not like they they get up one day and choose to be choose to like cause these leakages, right?
Correct. No one likes to be on the dean's list for the wrong reasons.
Exactly. Uh, so let's talk about AI. So a majority of the developers seem to believe that AI is critical for cloud cost optimization, but a lot of them are obviously just getting started. Whether it's applying AI to FinOps, or applying AI for cloud cost optimization, or the cloud cost optimization of AI services themselves. So both of it seem to be sort of in the early stages, but it's definitely a priority that a lot of companies are thinking about, and clearly it shows in the report as well. So what are your perspectives? What are you seeing?
That's a tough one, Harish, because there's still a lot of unknown about AI, right? But one thing that we do know is that AI can cost a lot and cost a lot really fast, right? So one of the things that we've seen is controlled AI in places, control AI in accounts that are meant for AI. So we've started to segregate where we open up AI models and OpenAI or Bedrock or whatever that may be, versus where it's not allowed or not contained. And we closely monitor those accounts, put limits on them from a cost perspective and alerting, right? Just so someone doesn't leave it on over the weekend and walk away, right?
Sure.
Sort of deal. But we're still trying to figure it out, just like everyone else, right? But one of the things that, again, I think AI can help with is the opposite, on becoming more efficient for a developer to take advantage of cost savings and efficiencies, because AI is doing the modeling for you. No one's going to be able to number crunch that fast, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so interesting the way the space is emerging in terms of, so from applying AI for cost optimization, for instance. Like all those insights that you're looking for could potentially be generated by AI, and sort of focus your attention on what you need to. And we talked about optimization sprawl as like so many different techniques being available as well, and maybe some of those problems from a tooling standpoint can also be addressed by directing developers' attention towards what they need to solve for, right? Or like knowing like where you need to apply those recommendations or what actions you need to apply at what time. But on the other side, it's also these costs are starting to spiral up. Like when you start to use different models, there are so many, and it's such a rapidly evolving space that the costs are constantly evolving as well. So you want to keep a finger on the pulse, and you want to see how those change. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And what is the from talking about the future a little bit? What are some of the top priorities from a cost management challenge standpoint for you?
I think they always remain the same, right? Which is be more efficient, optimize more. But I see it more as in, let's leverage the tools to help us more, rather than just going after it by ourselves. Because again, we're never going to be able to number crunch as fast as AI or tools that come with AI built in on recommendations, right? So it's always that. And one of the big things that I'm trying for this year in 2025 is getting more engagement and gamification around champions on, hey, let's take advantage of all these things that the tool's telling us to take advantage of. These are low-hanging fruits, right? And then what I'm excited about, I guess, in the next 2 to 3 years is, where can AI take us next? AI has run a lot of models on this data that it already has. What can it do for us? What savings can it automatically go take advantage of? What optimization can it go take advantage of? Can it resize and right size better than we can today? And now we're just notified and made aware instead of waiting on an action.
Right. Awesome. Well, it's been a great conversation, Jignesh. You're DevOps, and you work very closely with developers, and you use Harness very extensively, going beyond FinOps as well. So it's always great to see the synergies across these disciplines, FinOps and DevOps. And obviously, a lot of the findings in this report is speaks to the challenges that
Yeah.
you're mentioning. So
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And like you said, I mean, there's been a lot of challenges because I think in the past there was a lot of silos because tools were built for finance folks and developer folks. But
right,
now I think we're seeing a merger in sort of a dev FinOps,
right,
if you will, on we're empowering the developer more, and
right,
we're actually not only empowering them, but we're starting to hold them more accountable.
right.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for joining the session. Download the report. There's lots of great insights in there.